Imagine this. Two major airlines, really close partners, sharing routes, sharing money, even loyalty programs. And then, boom, suddenly they're forced to be rivals.
Yeah, it's quite a picture. What could possibly cause such a big breakup in the airline world? It seems so interconnected.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Right.
We're looking at the U.S. Department of Transportation's recent decision, the DOT's move, to basically break up the joint venture between Delta Airlines and Aeroméxico.
And this isn't just about Delta and Aeroméxico, is it?
Not at all. It's really a fascinating window into, the high stakes of international aviation deals, government policy clashes, and honestly, what it all means for your travel plans.
So our mission today really is to unpack why this happened. We'll focus on what the Mexican government did, how the U.S. responded.
And the bigger picture, too. What does this mean for airline competition, for us consumers, and maybe the future of flying between countries?
Exactly. Let's start with the basics, though. What is a joint venture, or JV, in the airline business?
Good question. So basically, airlines in a JV agree to act like a single company on certain routes.
Right. They coordinate schedules, figure out how many seats to sell, share the revenue that comes in.
And even set prices together. It's like they merged just for those specific flights.
Pooling resources strategy, everything.
No, that sounds great for the airlines, but doesn't that usually ring alarm bells for regulators? Antitrust concerns?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where this thing called antitrust immunity, or ATI, comes in. It's special permission from the government.
Permission to do what?
Permission to bypass the usual antitrust laws that would normally stop them from coordinating so closely.
Ah, okay. So without that immunity.
They have to act like totally separate competitors.
Yeah.
No price coordination, no sharing capacity plans, nothing like that.
Seems like a big hurdle, getting that ATI. Why do airlines go through all the trouble? What's the payoff?
Well, the benefits are pretty huge. They get a much bigger network reach. Think global connectivity without needing billions for new planes everywhere.
Right.
Studies actually show JVs can boost revenues by like 5 to 10% annually. Plus, cost savings, sharing lounges, maintenance deals.
And the frequent flyer perks, right? Using miles across airlines.
Exactly. Huge for customer loyalty. They say loyalty programs are like 20% of extra revenue for alliances back in 2023.
Yeah.
It gives them a real edge.
And Delta's investment in Aeroméxico shows how deep this goes, doesn't it?
Definitely. Hundreds of millions invested. Delta owns about 20% of Aeroméxico. That's a serious partnership.
Okay, so big benefits. But what does the U.S. government need to see before it grants this kind of special immunity, especially with a foreign airline?
The core requirement is something called an open skies policy.
Open skies.
Yeah. Basically, it means both countries have to agree to let each other's airlines fly freely into their markets. Unfettered access.
So no government blocking routes or limiting flights.
Exactly. The 2015 agreement between the U.S. and Mexico specifically talks about competition, letting airlines decide frequency and capacity based on, business sense, not government interference. That free market idea is key for these JVs.
Okay, so open skies is the foundation. And this is where things started to get shaky, right? The DOT felt Mexico wasn't holding up its end of the bargain.
That's the heart of the dispute, yes. The U.S. argues that actions under Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, or AMLO, started to really undermine that open skies principle, push the relationship closer to the brink, as they put it.
What kind of actions are we talking about?
Well, one of the first big things AMLO did was cancel a massive, partially built new airport project for Mexico City.
The one meant to relieve congestion at the main airport, MEX.
That's the one. It was already well underway. Instead, he pivoted and turned a military base, much farther from the city, into the Felipe Ángeles Airport, AIFA. He said it was to relieve, not replace, MEX. It was a big campaign promise, framed as a fight against corruption tied to the old project. But it caused immediate disruption.
Okay, so airport chaos. What else?
And then there was the safety downgrade. In May 2021, the U.S. knocked Mexico's aviation safety rating down to Category 2.
Ouch. What did that mean, practically?
It meant Delta and Aeroméxico couldn't code share like they used to, and Mexican Airlines couldn't add any new flights or routes to the U.S.
How long did that last?
2.5 years. Mexico only got back to Category 1 status in September 2023. That's a long time in the aviation world.
Definitely. So airport issues, safety issues, was there more?
Oh, yes. There was a decree forcing all air cargo operations out of the main Mexico City airport, MEX, and over to the new, more distant AIFA.
How did the U.S. react to that?
They did not take kindly to it, is the phrasing used. They saw it as a direct breach of the 2015 Air Transport Agreement.
Did it have other ripple effects?
It did. It actually caused the U.S. to suspend looking at another potential JV between Allegiant and Viva Aerobus. That one was seen as potentially really good for consumers because Allegiant doesn't fly to Mexico now, so it would have meant new, probably cheaper options.
Wow. So Mexico's actions were directly impacting potential benefits for U.S. travelers.
Seems that way. And then came the capacity cuts at MX itself.
Cuts? How?
The Mexican government forced airlines to reduce the number of flights operating out of MX. They did this over 3 consecutive IATA seasons. Those are the standard global planning periods. So long-term systematic cuts.
What was the reason given?
They initially said it was for renovations at MX, but the DOT later pointed out that Mexico eventually admitted no such construction plans exist.
So it wasn't really about renovations.
It seems not. The effect was it limited any new airlines trying to get into MX and squeezed existing ones. The DOT said there was no possibility of new entry at MX for the foreseeable future, and critics noted it seemed to benefit Aeromexico disproportionately.
So it sounds like a pattern the U.S. saw as, well, anti-competitive, moving away from open skies.
That's certainly the U.S. perspective. Add to that, AMLO bought the old Mexicana airline name to start up a new military-run airline based at AIFA.
A state-subsidized competitor.
Exactly, which, makes private airlines less keen to compete there. And finally, the DOT also flagged the way landing and takeoff slots were allocated at MECX as opaque and anti-competitive, again, seeming to favor Aeromexico.
Okay, so that's a lot of actions the U.S. pointed to. How did the DOT officially respond to all this?
Their response was pretty forceful. They tentatively denied the renewal of that crucial antitrust immunity for the Delta Aeromexico joint venture.
Denied it, meaning the partnership has to end.
Essentially, yes. They proposed a deadline for the two airlines to completely unwind their JV by late October 2025. And the justification was framed very directly.
You mean the America First framing?
Right. We have a quote from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy on this. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg deliberately allowed Mexico to break our bilateral aviation agreement. That ends today."
Wrong words.
Very. He continued, "Let these actions serve as a warning to any country who thinks it can take advantage of the U.S., our carriers, and our market. America First means fighting for the fundamental principle of fairness."
So a clear signal about enforcing agreements and protecting U.S. interests.
Unmistakably. And it wasn't just talk. There are new rules now.
What kind of rules?
All Mexican airlines, passenger, cargo, charter, all of them, now have to submit their flight schedules to the U.S. DOT for approval. That's much stricter oversight than before.
Interesting. And you mentioned this wasn't entirely out of the blue.
Right. A similar tentative decision was actually made under the Biden administration. It just wasn't finalized. So the current administration followed through, suggesting maybe a bipartisan view on the core issue, even if the rhetoric differs.
Okay, so the JV is unwinding. Let's talk impact. What does this mean for travelers, for you listening?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, potentially. On one hand, Delta and Aeromexico will now compete head-to-head.
Which could mean lower prices on some routes, more competition.
Could, yes, on some routes. But on others, it might actually mean higher fares and fewer options.
Well, so?
Because the JV allowed them to launch routes together that maybe neither could justify alone. Those might disappear. Plus, that Allegiant Viva Aerobus deal being suspended means those potential new, cheaper flights are off the table for now.
And just the convenience factor, right? Seamless booking, connections.
Exactly. That seamless coordination is lost. It might just make travel between the U.S. and Mexico a bit more cumbersome. It also, really shows how fragile these big global partnerships can be when politics gets involved.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even huge business deals aren't immune to shifts in government policy.
Not at all. It's a risk companies face.
And the airlines themselves put a number on the economic damage, didn't they?
They did. They estimate almost 24 routes could be at risk, along with about $800 million in economic benefits tourism spending. Jobs for both the U.S. and Mexico.
Wow. They even estimated tourist numbers dropping.
Yeah, potentially over 140,000 fewer American tourists visiting Mexico and 90,000 fewer Mexican tourists visiting the U.S. Significant numbers.
This whole situation also seems to shine a light on bigger issues in the U.S. airline industry itself, doesn't it? Since deregulation back in '78.
Absolutely. Deregulation led to a lot of consolidation. Now we have just a handful of huge carriers and these fortress hubs where one airline dominates, limiting competition.
So this dispute kind of highlights why these international agreements like Open Skies are supposed to be important. to prevent that lack of competition from spreading internationally because of another country's policies.
Precisely. They're meant to ensure a level playing field based on market principles, not government protectionism that might stifle competition.
And are there ideas being floated, maybe spurred by situations like this, to boost competition more broadly, even within the U.S.?
There are. Experts talk about things like maybe capping the percentage of flights one airline can control at major airports, say around 30%, to open things up.
What else?
Limiting how airlines can sublease takeoff and landing slots so they don't just hoard them without using them, making it easier for new airlines to get gate access.
And dealing with those tricky airport contracts.
Right. Things like majority and interest clauses. These sometimes let the dominant airline at an airport basically veto expansion plans that could bring in more competition. More oversight is needed there.
So trying to ensure that fundamental principle of fairness Secretary Duffy mentioned applies domestically too.
That seems to be the goal of those proposals, yeah. A more competitive, resilient market overall.
So looking ahead, what happens next in this U.S.-Mexico aviation spat?
A lot depends on negotiations between the two governments, certainly. And a big factor is Mexico's upcoming presidential election, June 2nd.
AMLO can't run again, right?
No, he's term limited. His party's candidate, Claudia Sheinbaum, is leading in the polls. But it's not entirely clear if she'd continue AMLO's exact aviation policies or take a different approach. So there's still quite a bit of uncertainty.
Okay, so to recap, we've seen how Mexican government policies, driven by domestic goals, created major friction with international aviation agreements.
Which led to the breakdown of a major airline partnership, the Delta Aeroméxico JV, and prompted a pretty strong response from the U.S. DOT framed under that America First banner.
It really underscores this delicate dance between national interests, international rules, and the market forces shaping how we fly.
It absolutely does. A complex interplay.
So as you think about your next trip, maybe even one to Mexico, here's something to chew on. How much government intervention, whether it's here or abroad, is the right amount? How do we balance ensuring fair competition for airlines with making sure you have reliable, affordable travel options?